The whispers beneath apartment 309. The quiet move-in. Brooklyn winters had a way of biting through even the thickest coats. It was February, when Mara Jennings, a 27-year-old nurse, moved into apartment 309 of a renovated brownstone on Prospect Avenue. She'd found the place online, cheap, furnished, and available immediately. It almost felt too good to be true. But after her breakup and a double shift rotation, she needed a reset. The landlord, a wiry man named Mr. Keene, had simply handed her the keys and muttered, "Don't go poking around the basement." Mara assumed it was old New York superstition. Most brownstones had strange histories. The apartment itself was cozy, hardwood floors, exposed brick, and a big window facing the streetlight that hummed softly every night. Her first night, she noticed something faint beneath the usual city noise, a whispering hum, not from above or beside but underneath. It was rhythmic, almost like breathing, faintly echoing through the floorboards. She pressed her ear down once, laughing nervously. Pipes, she told herself. Old building stuff. But when she lay in bed that night, the whispers became more distinct. Not just noise, voices, faint murmurs that rose between 2 and 3 a.m. She couldn't make out the words, but one phrase repeated clearly enough to cut through her half-sleep. "She's here now." Mara's eyes snapped open. The hum of the streetlight outside buzzed in rhythm with her heartbeat. For the first time, she wondered what lay beneath apartment 309, and why Mr. Keene warned her not to go near the basement. The first strange sign. By the third night, Mara couldn't shake the unease. During her morning coffee, she noticed dust trails near the air vent, thin, handprint-shaped smudges like something had crawled up from inside. She called maintenance, but the guy on the phone said, "That basement system hasn't been used in years. You sure it's not just lint?" That night, the whispers came earlier, 1:47 a.m. this time. They were louder, layered, almost conversational. Mara turned off the TV and stood barefoot on the wooden floor. The whispering stopped instantly, replaced by an eerie silence. Then there ceased knock, knock, knock. 3 distinct knocks from underneath the floorboards. Her heart thudded. She crouched down, whispered shakily, "Who's there?" The reply came in a distorted voice, impossibly close. "Don't answer him." She stumbled backward, nearly dropping her phone. The next morning, she went downstairs to find Mr. Keene unlocking the basement door. He looked pale, startled to see her. "You stay upstairs," he said firmly. "This area's off limits." But before he closed the door, Mara caught a glimpse, stairs descending into flickering orange light, and the faint sound of someone whispering her name. Later, when she checked online for the building's history, she found a single mention buried in a 1994 newspaper archive. Tenant disappears inside Prospect Brownstone during blackout. No remains found. Basement sealed permanently. She slammed the laptop shut, her breath hitching. That was 30 years ago. Apartment 309 had been unoccupied until her. And now every time she tried to sleep, the whispers below grew bolder, like they were waiting for her to reply. Fear builds. Sleep-deprived and trembling, Mara started recording the sounds on her phone. Each night she'd capture hours of audio. When she played it back in the morning, she heard things that didn't make sense. Faint crying, chanting, metal dragging against concrete. Her co-worker Jamie listened during lunch and frowned. "That's not pipes, Mara. It sounds like people." "Exactly," Mara whispered. "But the basement's sealed," Jamie tried to reassure her, offering to crash at her place for a night. But that evening, when they both lay awake listening, nothing happened. No whispers, no knocks, just silence. Jamie laughed it off. "See? Probably stress. You need rest." But when Jamie left, the whispers returned, harsher this time, angry. One voice hissed, "Why did you bring her?" The next morning, Mara found dark residue around her floor vent, like soot or ash. The smell, burnt hair. She traced it to the corner near her closet, where the wood felt warm. She pressed her ear down and heard sobbing. By now, the fear was unbearable. She tried sleeping on the couch, keeping lights on, wearing headphones. But every night, at the same time, the whispering started beneath her feet. Then, one night, as she scrolled through her recordings, she saw a timestamp, a new file she hadn't made. It was titled 0309, Your Next OTM4A. Her hands shook as she hit play, first silence, then breathing. Then her own voice, whispering back to them, "She's here now." Isolation and doubt. Mara started to question her sanity. She'd stopped going to work, too afraid to leave her apartment. The whispers seemed to follow her, echoing faintly even when she showered or cooked. She'd see movement in reflections, flickers of faces in the glass. Her landlord began avoiding her. When she finally cornered him in the hallway demanding answers, he looked terrified. "You shouldn't have come here," he said. This building was a church before the brownstone. The basement wasn't storage. It was a place they used to bury confessions. "What does that even mean?" she cried. "They recorded them," he whispered. Voices of the condemned. Those who couldn't forgive themselves. Mara didn't believe him. But when she checked the walls that night, she found tiny speakers hidden behind the plaster. Ancient, dusty devices wired into the structure. They were still active. She yanked one out, horrified to see the wire lead through a crack in the floorboards, downward toward the basement. Her phone buzzed suddenly. A notification. A new audio file. She hadn't touched it. The name forgiveus.mp3 shaking, she pressed play. It was her own voice again, weeping, saying words she didn't remember ever speaking. "I didn't mean to leave them. I didn't mean to die here." The walls seemed to vibrate with whispers after that, 100 overlapping voices chanting her name. "Mara! Mara!" She grabbed her things, ready to flee. But when she opened her apartment door, the hallway was gone. Just a long flight of stairs descending into orange light. The threat reveals itself. Mara's breath fogged in front of her face as she stared at the impossible staircase. The orange glow below flickered like candlelight, casting long, shifting shadows up the walls. The stairway shouldn't exist. Her apartment was supposed to open into a shared hallway. Her trembling hand reached out to the railing. It was cold, damp, as if condensation or something worse coated the metal. Every instinct screamed to run, but the whispers below were no longer just sound. They were pleas. "Help us. Don't let him take us again." Something about the voices, desperate, human, pulled her forward. She descended one creaking step after another. The air thickened with the smell of mildew and burnt paper. Her phone flashlight flickered, revealing centuries-old stone beneath the modern walls. At the bottom, the basement opened into a large chamber, lined with decaying pews, like an underground church. In the center stood a tape recorder, its reels spinning slowly even though it wasn't plugged in. The whispers grew louder, bleeding from the walls. Then among them a new voice, and deeper, rasping. "She shouldn't have come down," Mara froze. Across the room she saw movement. A tall, shadowed figure crouched in the corner, its face hidden beneath a veil of static. It seemed to shimmer like a corrupted video feed. The whispers hushed instantly, as if terrified of it. Mara whispered, "Who are you?" It tilted its head, bones cracking, and the static around it deepened until its shape warped. The voice that replied didn't come from its mouth. It came from everywhere. "You're the next recording." Tension explodes. The air crackled, lights flickering violently as the chamber groaned. The figure stepped forward, each movement accompanied by the hiss of static. It towered over her, its outline constantly distorting, glitching between human and shadow. Mara stumbled backward, knocking over an old pew that splintered into dust. She bolted for the stairs, but when she reached the first step, it was gone. The stairs had vanished into the wall. She was trapped. The recorder began to spin faster on its own, blaring warped, overlapping screams. Voices cried for help, some repeating her own words. "Let me out, please!" Panicking, she grabbed a broken pipe from the floor and hurled it at the shadow. It struck and but passed through like smoke. Yet the creature reacted, hissing violently, its form twitching. She realized it didn't like light, so she turned on her phone flashlight and aimed it straight at it. The figure convulsed, the static sizzling into screams. The orange light flickered white for a split second, and in that flash, Mara saw what it really was. Dozens of faces fused together, whispering endlessly in agony. She screamed and sprinted toward a side door she hadn't noticed before. She yanked it open, revealing a narrow corridor filled with cassette tapes lining both walls. Thousands of them, each labeled with a name, and as she passed, some names whispered audibly, "Mara Jennings." Jamie Thompson, Mr. Keene. She stopped cold at the last one. The tape at the end of the hall bore her name. It wasn't dusty. It was new. Then a click behind her. The recorder in the chamber had stopped spinning, and the static figure was gone. Desperation, Mara gripped the walls, heart pounding, her flashlight flickering low. The tapes whispered louder the deeper she went, voices blending into a suffocating chant. "Join us! Join us! Join us!" At the far end of the corridor stood an old elevator door, rusted shut. On the wall beside it hung a faded emergency evacuation map, one that showed the building layout before renovation. There was no apartment 309, no upper floors, just one word written over the area that used to be her unit: confession room. Her breath hitched. The realization hit her: apartment 309 didn't exist. It was built over the original basement entrance, a chamber meant to contain these voices, and she had reopened it. She tried prying open the elevator door. It screeched reluctantly. Inside, darkness, but faint light shimmered far below. She climbed in, holding her breath as the door clanged shut. Then the elevator started moving, on its own, downward. As she descended, whispers crawled into her ears. They weren't calling her name anymore. They were telling her story. Moved in alone, broke the seal, listened when she shouldn't have. "She's part of us now," Mara screamed, pounding the door, but the elevator stopped suddenly. A single chime echoed. When the doors opened, she was no longer underground. She stood in her apartment again, 309, only now the walls pulsed with faint static. Every vent hummed softly, and when she looked at the window, the world outside flickered, like an old VHS screen glitching in and out. Her phone buzzed once more. New recording detected. Final confession d'M4A. The shocking, haunting ending. The file began playing automatically. Her voice came through, exhausted, trembling. "I tried to leave, but he won't let me. Please, whoever finds this, don't listen to the floor. Don't answer the voices." Her reflection in the window began to distort, her lips moving a second out of sync with her voice. She turned to run, but the door to her apartment was gone, replaced by smooth brick. The hum in the walls grew deafening. Then, silence. Her phone's flashlight flickered out. When it blinked back on, the static figure stood behind her reflection, towering, its face now entirely human, her own. It whispered, calm and final, "Your confession is complete." The screen went black. Weeks later, a new tenant named Alicia moved into apartment 309. The landlord was different this time, younger, friendlier, and oblivious to the past. The ad had said, "Recently renovated. Great view. Great price." Alicia unpacked, set up her Bluetooth speaker, and turned on some music to fill the quiet. But as she walked past the vent, the track cut out for a moment, replaced by faint, layered whispers. "She's here now." She frowned, tapped her phone, and the music returned. That night, around 2:57 a.m., Alicia woke up to a soft knock from beneath the floorboards. Knock, knock, knock. And in the faint orange light outside her window, the building's reflection flickered, just for a second, like an old recording replaying itself. The missing camper from Pine Hollow Trail. Calm but eerie, set up in northern Colorado. Surrounded by dense pine forests and winding dirt roads, lies Pine Hollow Trail, a stretch popular with campers but known by locals for one thing: people who hike too deep sometimes don't come back. When Ethan Monroe, a 27-year-old wildlife photographer from Denver, drove up one late summer weekend, he wasn't there for legends. He wanted isolation. After a recent breakup and mounting stress at work, the silence of the Rockies felt like the cure. He parked near mile marker 12, the last spot before cell service vanished, and began setting up camp just before sunset. The trees whispered softly in the wind. The air smelled like pine and rain-soaked dirt. That night, he lit a small fire and began recording voice notes for his podcast, Solitude Diaries. He talked about the stars, about finding peace again, about wanting to disconnect completely. Then faintly, the forest answered back. Somewhere behind him, a twig snapped, followed by slow, uneven footsteps. Ethan froze, his flashlight sweeping the dark. The noise stopped. He convinced himself it was a deer, but his recording later caught something else. A low hum, like a person breathing too close to the microphone. The last thing on that night's audio file was his whisper. Thought I saw someone. He never uploaded another episode. When rangers found his abandoned tent 2 weeks later, the firewood was untouched. His camera was gone. But one thing was left behind on his sleeping bag. Muddy footprints, barefoot, too small to be his. The first strange sign. The next morning after setting up camp, Ethan hiked up the main ridge to get sunrise shots. His GoPro footage showed a clear view of the valley, golden light cutting through the trees. But when he replayed it during lunch, he noticed something strange in the corner of the frame. A figure standing far behind him on the ridge. Too still, too pale, watching. He paused the video, squinting. The figure disappeared between frames, as if it had moved while the camera blinked. He laughed nervously, chalking it up to an illusion. But when he returned to camp, his tent flap was open, though he'd zipped it shut that morning. Inside, nothing seemed stolen, except his water bottle and half his jerky bag were gone. That night, as wind howled through the trees, Ethan sat by his fire, trying to shake the unease. He turned his recorder back on. Something's weird out here. It's quiet but not peaceful. Like the woods are listening. He stopped talking when he heard it, the whistling. Faint, rhythmic, coming from the tree line. He called out, thinking maybe another camper was nearby. No reply. Just the whistling continuing. Closer now. When he shined his flashlight into the dark, it stopped abruptly. He shut the fire out early and zipped into his tent, gripping his flashlight. For hours he lay awake listening to the wind. But every so often, the whistling returned. Short, sharp bursts, echoing just outside the thin nylon walls. At 3:14 a.m., his recorder clicked on by itself, and from outside, a voice, soft, almost childlike, whispered, "You shouldn't camp here." Fear builds. Ethan woke at dawn, shaken. He checked the edges of his campsite and found tiny barefoot prints in the mud surrounding his tent. They circled the area like someone had been pacing all night. He grabbed his camera and recorded them, muttering to himself for proof. These aren't animal tracks. These are human. When he followed the prints, they led to a makeshift shrine, a small pile of stones topped with a deer skull. Feathers and rusted nails hung from branches above it. A faint smell of smoke lingered. Uneasy, Ethan decided to leave, but as he packed up, his truck wouldn't start. The battery was dead, though he swore he hadn't left the lights on. By mid-afternoon, clouds rolled in. Rain fell hard, turning the dirt to sludge. He was trapped until morning. That night, he built another fire, sitting close for warmth. His phone displayed no service. His recorder picked up faint, low static again. He replayed last night's clip and froze when he heard something beneath the whisper, a second voice deeper, overlapping the childlike one. It growled through distortion, "You shouldn't leave here." Suddenly the air went still, the trees stopped swaying. The rain ceased mid-pour, and then a child's laughter echoed through the forest. Ethan stood, heart pounding, scanning the woods. The laughter grew louder, circling him. He aimed his flashlight and caught a glimpse, a small figure crouched on all fours, skin gray, eyes glinting white in the dark. The moment the light hit it, it bolted into the trees. Ethan backed toward his tent, breathing hard, whispering, it wasn't human. And from somewhere behind him, the whistling began again, and slow, deliberate, closer than ever. Isolation or doubt. By morning, the rain had stopped, but Ethan's world had changed. His truck was now covered in handprints, small ones, mud-caked and smeared across every window. He shouted into the trees, his voice breaking, "Who's out there? Show yourself." Nothing. Only the rustle of branches. He tried walking toward the main road with his gear, but the trail markers had vanished. The forest seemed different, unfamiliar, rearranged. The sun hung dim and motionless, as if time had stalled. By noon, Ethan started hearing whispers again, though they weren't behind him this time, as they were in his head. Fragments of words he couldn't understand. A chorus echoing the same phrase, "Stay, stay, stay." He stumbled upon another camp, older, decayed. Torn tents, a half-burnt map, and a camera half buried in dirt. When he powered it on, the screen showed footage from the same trail years ago. A group of hikers laughing around a fire, until one looked directly at the camera and screamed. Then static. Ethan hurled the camera away, shaking. He turned to leave, and realized he'd come full circle. His own camp was right behind him again, like he'd walked in a loop. That night he made a final recording, voice trembling. "If anyone finds this, I think this place wants people. It doesn't let you go. I hear them now, they sound like me." He sat near his dying fire, gripping a flare. The forest hummed faintly, and through the haze he saw his own silhouette standing across the flames, staring back at him. When he moved his hand, the figure didn't mimic him. It just tilted its head and smiled. The hidden room. The clerk's keys jingled faintly as Cameron snatched them from the hook labeled storage. He shouldn't have done it. He knew that. But his curiosity had crossed the line into something else. Fear mixed with obsession. The key labeled 7 was heavier than the rest. It had dried rust around the teeth, as if it hadn't been turned in years. The hallway outside his room felt colder now, the air humming faintly like a faraway generator. Every few seconds, a light flickered above him. When he reached room 7, the door looked wrong, slightly warped with black water stains spidering down the wood. He slid the key in on his slow and turned. The door creaked open to pitch darkness. His phone flashlight cut through the air. The room was stripped bare. No bed, no lamps, just damp walls and a smell of iron. At first he thought there was nothing inside. Then he noticed the carvings. Hundreds of them. Names etched into the drywall. Some repeated over and over, deep enough to break plaster. Danielle, Matthew, Cameron. His stomach dropped. His name, carved near the floor. Beneath it, fresh scratches trailed toward the closet. The door was slightly ajar. He hesitated, heart hammering. "Hello?" Something moved inside, in a shuffle, a breath. The smell of wet rot flooded the air. He took one step back, and the door slammed shut from the inside. The sound was deafening in the silence that followed. He stumbled backward, slamming into the hall wall. The light above him went out completely, plunging him into darkness. Except for one thing, room 8's door wide open now, light flickering inside like someone had just entered. The thing in the light. Cameron's chest tightened as he stared at his own room. The door open, the dim light inside pulsing like a heartbeat. The air around him felt charged, filled with static and the faint hiss of something unseen. He stepped closer. The television inside was on, snow and static filling the screen, though he was sure he had unplugged it. The sound wasn't normal static. It was rhythmic, layered with whispers that seemed to repeat his name. Cam, you shouldn't have opened the door." The curtains fluttered though the window was closed. He swallowed hard and reached for the TV cord. That's when something moved in the reflection. A figure standing in the corner of the room, its face lost in static light. It was tall still, watching. He spun around, no one there. The static grew louder, almost screaming. The lights began to flicker violently, shadows strobing across the walls. His reflection on the TV screen started to distort, smiling when he wasn't, head tilting unnaturally. Then the voice changed. It wasn't whispering anymore. It was clear. "You opened room 7. Now room 7 opens you." The TV exploded in a burst of sparks. Cameron fell backward, slamming into the dresser. The smell of ozone filled the air. When he looked up, the figure was gone. But the door to room 7 was open again, just a sliver, like it was waiting for him. Lightning flashed through the window, and for a split second he saw it clearly. A man-shaped shadow crouched low in the hallway, head tilted sideways, smiling too wide, and then the lights went out completely. Desperation. Darkness swallowed the motel. Only the wind howled outside, punctuated by the relentless creak of the signs swaying in the storm. Cameron ran to the front office, slamming his fists against the counter. "Hello? Somebody." The clerk didn't answer. Her chair was turned toward the wall and empty. He moved closer and realized the radio beside her was playing faint static, the same rhythmic hum as before. Behind the desk was a door. It led to the basement, slightly open. The smell hit him first. Mildew, metal, and something else, a coppery. He hesitated, then descended the stairs, phone flashlight trembling in his hand. The basement walls were lined with old photographs. Guests, all smiling, all with the same red room behind them. Room 7, written in marker on each photo's back. In the corner, a tape recorder clicked. He pressed play. "Do not enter room 7, it keeps what it takes. The guests don't leave and they become the next vacancy." A door slammed upstairs, footsteps running. The front office lights flickered back on. Cameron sprinted up, panting, only to find the clerk back at the desk staring blankly ahead. "Did you hear that?" he shouted. She turned slowly. Her eyes were black, glossy, and empty. "You shouldn't be here after midnight," she whispered. "He's already awake." Her jaw cracked open wider than humanly possible. Cameron stumbled back, bolting toward his car, rain slamming against him. He jumped inside, started the engine, but the headlights only lit the motel sign, and under it, his car from earlier, parked exactly where it had been hours ago. Except the driver's seat was occupied by him. The haunting ending. Cameron's breath hitched. The man in the other car was him. Same jacket, same exhaustion in his eyes, only this version didn't blink. The reflection stared back with a slow smile. Rain pounded harder. He threw the car into reverse, but the engine died. Headlights flickered, radio hissing back to life. "Check in again," it whispered. "There's always room." He jumped out, slipping in the mud, sprinting toward the highway. But as he reached the road, it wasn't there. The motel sat in every direction, repeating itself like a loop. The same sign, the same building, the same flickering vacancy light. He screamed, spinning, the sound lost in the storm. Then, a voice behind him. "Your room's ready." He turned. The clerk stood holding the room 8 key. Water ran down her face like melting wax. Cameron stumbled backward and tripped into a puddle that wasn't reflecting the sky. Instead, it reflected room 7. The carvings, the door. His name scratched deeper than before. He fell through it. The motel fell silent. By dawn, the storm had cleared. A police cruiser pulled in, responding to a 911 call that had cut off mid-scream. The officer found the front office empty, except for one fresh entry in the guest book. Cameron H., room 7, and outside the neon sign flickered weakly to life again. Vacancy. The woman on County Road 19. The lonely highway. It was just after 1 a.m. when Evan crossed into the empty stretch of County Road 19, a desolate 2-lane highway running between rural Tennessee towns. He'd been driving for hours, hauling camera equipment back from a late-night wedding shoot. His eyelids felt heavy, and the dashboard clock seemed frozen at that same haunting minute. Outside, mist crawled across the road like something alive. The fog lights cut through it just enough to reveal cracked asphalt and long-forgotten mailboxes leaning into the dark. The radio crackled between country stations, occasionally bursting with static and whispers that didn't sound like music. He tried to call his wife. No service. The GPS said rerouting again and again before shutting off completely. He muttered, "Of course," and kept driving. That's when he saw her, a woman walking alone on the side of the road, barefoot, wearing a torn white dress that shimmered strangely under the headlights. Her hair was drenched, clinging to her face. Evan slowed the car, rolling down the window slightly. "Ma'am, you okay?" No answer. She just kept walking, her shoulders shaking out like she was crying. He drove past her, glancing in the mirror. She stopped walking and turned her head toward him. Her face pale under the red glow of his taillights. Something about her eyes made his stomach twist. Too black, too wide, reflecting nothing. He blinked, and she was gone. He slammed the brakes, heart racing, scanning the road behind him. Nothing, just mist and silence. Then a knock, 3 sharp taps on the passenger side window. He turned his head slowly. The woman was standing outside his car. Hitchhiker. Evan froze. The woman's face was only inches from the glass. Her lips were blue, trembling, her hair plastered to her cheeks as if she'd just climbed out of a lake. She didn't look angry, just lost. He swallowed hard and cracked the window an inch. "Hey, do you need help?" "There's a gas station a few miles up." She didn't answer. Her gaze flicked from him to the empty passenger seat, then back again. Her hand rose, pale, shaking, and she pointed at the seat. "You can take me home." Her voice was soft, almost childlike, but beneath it something wavered, a low hum like static. Evan hesitated. Every instinct screamed don't, but leaving her there felt wrong, cruel even. "All right. Get in, I'll drive you to town." She slipped into the car silently. No sound when the door shut. The air inside turned freezing, breath fogging the windshield. "What's your name?" he asked. "Rebecca," she whispered. "I used to live near the bridge," he frowned. The old bridge had collapsed 5 years ago. He'd photographed the news coverage himself. They drove in silence for several minutes. Then faintly from the radio came a voice, his own voice, a recording of him saying, "Hey, do you need help?" He turned the dial. The sound persisted, now mixed with breathing and soft laughter. Rebecca stared out the window, eyes fixed on something in the fog. "Wrong way," she whispered. "You shouldn't have come this way." Evan looked back at the road, and his headlights illuminated a sign that hadn't been there a second ago. "Bridge closed and do not enter," and beyond it the faint silhouette of water rippling. The bridge that isn't there. Evan slowed the car, tires crunching on gravel. The bridge ahead looked ancient, half collapsed, swallowed by mist. Broken wooden planks dangled over a river that shimmered under the moonlight like oil. He turned to Rebecca. "This bridge hasn't existed for years. It's condemned." She didn't respond. Her head tilted slightly, her hair covering her face. When she finally spoke, her voice sounded distant. It wasn't supposed to happen that night. "What wasn't?" She lifted her eyes, glistening with tears that didn't fall. "The accident." He didn't stop. "He left me here." Evan's throat tightened. "You mean someone hit you?" She nodded slowly. "He promised to take me home." Her words crawled under his skin. The way she said them, as if quoting someone. The wind picked up, howling through the hollow bridge frame. The car lights flickered. "Rebecca, maybe we should turn around," he said, hand gripping the gear shift. Her head turned sharply toward him, too fast. "You can't, you're already here." The radio shrieked and feedback tearing through the speakers. A voice whispered beneath it. She never made it across. The fog around them thickened. Evan's headlights barely reached the hood now. The reflection of the bridge warped, like water rippling under glass. Rebecca smiled faintly, eyes darkening. "I tried to walk, I waited, but no one came." The car shook violently. He looked at the dashboard, every gauge spiking, the air temperature dropping to near freezing. He hit the gas, but when he looked out the windshield, the bridge was gone in its place, just endless, black still water, and in the reflection, sitting behind him, another Rebecca smiling in the back seat. The vanishing road. Evan's heart pounded as he slammed the brakes. The car fishtailed to a stop inches from the black water. Steam rose from the hood and silence followed, so complete it made his ears ring. He turned to the passenger seat, empty. Rebecca was gone. The door was shut. No footprints, no sound, just fog. He fumbled for his phone, no signal. The battery icon flashed red, then died completely. The headlights dimmed and flickered out. Only the dull orange glow from the dashboard remained, casting warped shadows across the windshield. He tried to breathe steadily, telling himself it was exhaustion. "It's just fatigue," hallucination. But the air was so cold, his breath came out in thick clouds. Something moved in the rearview mirror. A figure walking down the center of the road? Evan spun around. The road behind him was gone, replaced by a narrow dirt path cutting through thick woods. Branches swayed though there was no wind. He opened the car door, stepping out onto soft mud. His boots sank into the ground with a wet sound. The mist coiled around his legs like fingers. Somewhere deeper in the woods, a woman's voice hummed, soft, mournful, and hauntingly familiar. The same tune that had come through the radio. He turned, calling out, "Rebecca?" The humming stopped. Then from right behind him, a whisper. "He left me here too." He turned sharply. Nothing but empty air. Suddenly, headlights blinked on behind him. His own car, now idling in the road, its passenger door slowly opening. Inside, the radio turned on by itself, and from it, a voice that wasn't his, whispering his name. The reflection. Evan stumbled backward, tripping over a root as the car door creaked wider. The interior light flickered, revealing faint movement inside, like someone shifting in the passenger seat. He took a shaky step forward, squinting through the fog. The woman was sitting there again, but this time she wasn't Rebecca. She had his wife's face. "Sarah?" he whispered, frozen. Her lips trembled into a weak smile. "You came back for me." He blinked hard. "What? No. You're not real." The woman's reflection in the window twisted unnaturally, her smile stretching too wide. In the glass, her eyes were hollow voids leaking black tears. "Do you know what it's like to wait?" she said softly. "To freeze in the dark until your bones crack?" Evan stepped back, his flashlight flickering on. The beam passed through her body, straight through, no shadow, no reflection. Then a hand appeared on the inside of the window, pressing hard from within, fingernails scraping, leaving deep grooves on the glass. He screamed, stumbling backward as the car horn blared. Headlights flared bright white, momentarily blinding him. When he opened his eyes again, she was gone. The road behind the car now stretched endlessly, but something was wrong. The bridge, the fog, the forest, it all looked flipped, like a mirror image of itself. Evan climbed into the car, trembling, desperate to leave. He shifted into reverse and hit the gas, but the reflection in the rearview mirror didn't match the road. In it, he was still sitting there, unmoving, staring ahead, blood slowly dripping from his temple. The reflection smiled and mouthed, "Keep driving." The return, Evan floored the accelerator. Tires spun in mud, spraying dirt behind him. The car jolted forward onto the warped road that stretched through the woods. The radio crackled again, voices overlapping. His, Rebecca's, his wife's, repeating the same words. "He left me here." "You left me here." The forest thickened, branches arching over the road like ribs closing in. The air shimmered with mist so heavy it felt alive. Up ahead, a faint light flickered. A gas station sign. Relief flooded him. Civilization. He pulled up, headlights bouncing off cracked glass and peeling paint. The sign buzzed faintly. "Harrison Fuel has opened 24 hours. But everything was dark. No cars, no noise. Just an empty parking lot and the faint smell of gasoline. He stepped inside. Bells jingled overhead. "Hello? Anyone here?" No response. Only the low hum of a refrigerator unit and the faint crackle of a radio in the back room. He followed the sound until he froze. On the counter sat a dusty old photo in a cracked frame. A group of people smiling beside a gas pump. One of them was Rebecca, and another was Evan. Same face, same jacket, same scar near his eyebrow. His blood turned to ice. He backed away slowly, eyes darting around. The radio voice turned clearer now, repeating one sentence in a low, mechanical tone. "You made it home." The lights flickered, and outside, through the glass he saw her, Rebecca, standing beside his car, smiling. The final drive. Evan ran outside, heart hammering. "What do you want from me?" Rebecca's figure didn't move. The fog thickened around her like smoke, curling and twisting as she whispered something he couldn't hear. He lunged for the car door, jumped inside and locked it. The key turned, nothing. The engine clicked uselessly. Rebecca began walking toward him slowly, her feet gliding across the asphalt. The fog swallowed her halfway, revealing flashes of her pale face between each flicker of the neon sign. He pounded the steering wheel. "Come on!" Finally, the engine roared to life. He hit the gas, tearing down the road. The gas station lights faded into black, but something was wrong with the road. It kept looping. Every few minutes, he'd pass the same fallen tree, the same rusted sign. County Road 19. The radio came alive again, now playing a familiar voice, his own, sounding distant, exhausted. "If you're hearing this, you're already here." Evan's breath caught. The voice continued. "You tried to leave her. Just like before." "Before what?" he whispered. "I've never been here before." But his memories started to twist. Flashes of headlights, water, a scream, shattered glass. His hands trembling on a steering wheel that wasn't his current one. A bridge, a woman in white, her hand reaching out before the impact. He hit the brakes. Gasping, Rebecca's voice echoed through the car. "Now you remember." The windshield cracked, spiderweb fractures spreading outward, forming the shape of a handprint. The haunting ending. Evan blinked through tears. The air was thick with the smell of wet earth and iron. His ears rang with the sound of distant rushing water. He looked ahead. There it was again. The bridge, whole this time, stretching across the black river like it had never collapsed. Rebecca stood in the middle, her dress glowing faintly under the moonlight. Evan stepped out of the car, legs trembling. "It was an accident," he shouted. "I didn't see you." Rebecca's expression softened. "You could have stopped. I tried." His voice broke. "It wasn't my fault." She tilted her head, her voice now almost kind. "But you didn't come back." Tears burned down his face. He fell to his knees, the sound of water rising around him. The bridge planks creaked, soaked with unseen waves. Rebecca stepped closer. "Now you can take me home." Her cold hand brushed his cheek. He shuddered, and then she smiled. "Drive safe." With that, she turned and walked backward into the fog, vanishing. Evan blinked, and suddenly he was back in his car. Morning light streaming through the windshield. The road dry, the forest quiet. He exhaled shakily, laughing in disbelief. Just a nightmare. He started the engine and drove off. A mile down, he passed a faded roadside memorial. A wooden cross marked with the words, "In memory of Rebecca Allen, 2018. Underneath it, wilted flowers surrounded a rusted car mirror and reflected faintly in that mirror his own face, pale and wet, sitting still behind the wheel. As the reflection smiled back at him, the radio whispered one last time, "Welcome home, Evan."